It is totally possible to do the right thing wrong. Hey guys, it's me again, Douglas, and today I want to talk to you about legalism. Legalism basically means like following God's laws, but in a bad way. Now, God's commands are good. They are very good. They are very important. But in a way, you can follow God's commands in a way that does not honor God at all. Now, there are some people who say that if you insist that we must follow God's commands, some people say that that is legalism, and that's not legalism at all. God's commands are good. We are supposed to follow them, but we're supposed to follow them in the right way, the way that He wants us to. Now, sometimes legalism looks like doing what you're supposed to be doing, what God actually wants you to do, but doing it for the wrong reasons. Showing off or like trying to impress people is a terrible reason to follow God's commands. Have you ever seen people who like do good works, they give money or food to the poor and then they like film themselves and they're like, "Oh, I'm doing this awesome thing, guys. Look at me. I'm so great. I gave this homeless person $1." I think we all know that that's like selfish. And if you yourself like struggle with this, where you're like, I wanna impress people, so I'm gonna do good things. The solution is not to like stop doing good things. It's good to do good things. Just do what you can to not make it about showing off. I think another like wrong reason to do the right thing is to like stay out of trouble. Now, you don't want to get in trouble. That makes sense. Don't do the bad thing. Don't get in trouble. But if the only reason that you obey God's commands is so that you don't get in trouble, then what about those times where you're pretty sure you won't get in trouble? I saw this movie once where these people were committing a crime, and one of the criminals said, "It's only illegal if you get caught." No, that's not how it works. That's not how it works with like the laws of our government, and it's not how it works with God's laws, with God's commands. Like if you don't say something rude to someone because you know it would hurt their feelings, awesome. But if you do say something rude about someone behind their back because you're like, "I'm pretty sure they'll never find out that I said this," no. That's wrong. That's absolutely wrong. If you wouldn't say something to someone's face, don't say it behind their back. And that's just one example. There are so many things that we can do. There's so many sins where it's like, well, maybe I could get away with this. And if I get away with it, maybe it's okay. No, it's not. Sin is sin, whether you quote unquote get away with it or not. And truly, there is no getting away with sin because, well, sin just ruins things on its own. Also, God is always with us. You can't get away with anything because God knows what you've done. And so do you. So it's possible to follow God's commands for the wrong reasons, and it's also possible to follow them in the wrong way. So one of the ways that you can like do the right thing but in the wrong way is to like forget or neglect what is most important. And we have some really good examples of this in Scripture. So in Matthew chapter 23, verse 23, Jesus said, "Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for you tithe mint and dill and cumin and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice and mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others." So like the scribes and the Pharisees, they were following God's commands to tithe, to give 10% of what they had back to God, all the way down to like they were giving a tenth of like their herbs and spices and seasonings and stuff. But they didn't care about the poor. They didn't really care about justice and mercy and faithfulness, at least not God's definition of those things. In the book of Micah, chapter 6, verse 8, it says, "He has told you, O man, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God?" There was another time where the teachers of the law got really mad at Jesus because he healed someone on the Sabbath, and they had all these rules about what you were not supposed to do on the Sabbath, and you weren't supposed to, work. You weren't supposed to do your job. And Jesus was healing people, so it was kind of like his job to go heal people. And so they said, "Aha, you cannot heal on the Sabbath. You have sinned." But Jesus never sinned, and he brought up the fact that, like, if any one of them had a sheep that fell down into a pit, it would be like hard work to pull that sheep up out of the pit. But for the sake of the sheep's life, they would do it even on the Sabbath. Sometimes we like use our obedience to God, our following God's commands, as an excuse for sin, like not doing what we should do. It's like we do what we're supposed to do so that we don't have to do what we're really supposed to do. You know what I mean? In the story of the Good Samaritan, Jesus told this parable of a man who was like attacked and robbed and beaten and injured. And there were men who came by and they saw him and they passed him by. They did not help him. And these men were like important, like religious people. Like they had jobs at the temple. And in order for them to do their jobs, they needed to be like ceremonially clean. And if they helped this guy who was really, really all like beat up and dirty, probably covered in blood, then they wouldn't be clean for their duties at the temple. Now, Jesus doesn't explain that like explicitly in the parable. He just says that they passed him by. But like the people that Jesus was telling this story to, they knew that those people had like good religious reasons to not help this injured man. And the one who ended up helping him was a Samaritan, like his enemy. The Samaritan was the one who followed God's command to love your neighbor. And that's really what it comes down to. Following God's commands is about loving God and loving people. Jesus said that the first greatest commandment is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And he said that the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself. All of God's commands, they fit into these two commands. Love God, love others. And if you are like following rules but not loving, that's legalism. That's actually a pretty good way to define legalism. If you follow the rules but you do it without love. Now, legalism usually looks like following God's rules to show off or to like not get in trouble, but you don't actually care that it's wrong. You just don't want to get in trouble. Or like following God's rules, but you neglect what is most important. Like you follow God's rules, but without love. But sometimes legalism can look like becoming an expert on God's commands and God's rules and God's laws so that you can like find loopholes. You know, I was at the public pool in my town, and they've got a whole list of rules that you're supposed to follow, and one of the rules is no running, which can be kind of annoying if you're like outside the pool and your friend is on the other side of the pool and you want to go over to them without having to swim across. Like it takes forever to walk halfway around the pool. And one day I thought I was being so clever. I was like, the pool rules say no running, but it doesn't say anything about skipping, and that's a lot faster than walking. And so, yeah, my friend was on the other side of the pool, and so I started skipping around the pool. And I took like 4 skips, and then 2 things happened at the same time. One, the lifeguard tweeted his whistle at me for, moving too fast. I wasn't running, but I was going fast. And at that same moment, my foot slipped on some water, and my feet went up, and my head went down, and I cracked the back of my head on the concrete. And oh man, it hurt so bad. And I got in a lot of trouble. But I didn't like break the rule. It didn't say no skipping, but the reason why it said no running is because it gets slippery. And if you run, you will slip and fall and hurt yourself. And that's exactly what I did while skipping, thinking that I'd found some clever loophole around the rules. Actually, again, going back to that story of the Good Samaritan, Jesus told that story because someone asked him who their neighbor was, right? God said, love your neighbor as yourself. And this man was asking, okay, so exactly who is my neighbor? Who do I need to love? Which makes me assume that he was really asking, who can I get away with not loving? And Jesus' answer was, nobody. You should love everyone. So if you think that you have, studied God's commands and you have very cleverly avoided breaking a command so that you can do something that deep down inside, in your heart, is wrong, you have done nothing clever at all. It's not even that you, did the right thing for the wrong reason or in the wrong way. You just did not do the right thing. God's commands are good. We should follow them in the right way. And so that's my challenge to you guys today, is that you would follow God's commands. You would follow God's rules. You would do what he says to do, and you would not do what he says to not do. And my challenge is that you would obey his commands for the right reasons, not to show off, not just to avoid getting into trouble, and that you would do it in the right way, not forgetting what is most important. Not forgetting that God requires us to act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with him. And not forgetting that all the commandments are summed up in loving God and loving others. And my challenge is that you would not look for loopholes to do what is wrong, but you think you can get away with because maybe technically the Bible doesn't explicitly say this very particular thing that you want to do or, not do. Legalism is wrong. It does not honor God. Again, legalism is not to follow God's commands. God gives commands. We should follow them. But we need to follow them for the right reasons and in the right way. We need to obey God's commands with love, not with legalism. Hey guys, I hope you like this video. And yeah, I think that legalism is wrong because, Jesus is pretty explicit in how he talks to the Pharisees who were following the commands, but they were doing it in the wrong ways. But I do also feel like legalism has almost become a word that Christians use to be mean to other Christians. If a Christian says we should not do this thing because God says we should not do this thing, other Christians who want to do that thing will often say, that's legalism, you're legalistic. And I don't know, the situations are always going to be different. I don't always know if someone is being legalistic, but I do know 100% that saying that God's commands are important and that we should follow them, that's not legalism, at least not on its own. Legalism is bad, but we need to make sure that we don't run so far away from legalism that we just abandon God's commands entirely. God wants us to act justly. He wants us to do what we're supposed to do. He wants us to do the things that he told us to do. And he wants us to love mercy. We're supposed to love other people. We're supposed to be kind to others. We're supposed to be generous to others. We're supposed to be patient with others. And we're supposed to walk humbly with our God. We're not supposed to puff ourselves up. We're not supposed to say, I am the best person ever because I never do anything wrong. Not like those people over there. No, that's not humility at all. And if you're worried about, being legalistic, just make sure that you follow those rules. Act justly, love mercy, walk humbly, and make sure that you are loving God and loving others. If you're doing those things, it's not legalism.